Tokyo, to many, is a bucket list destination, and with good reason. The Japanese capital is the biggest city on the planet by population, with its metropolitan area home to over 37 million people. So, as you can imagine, it has plenty to keep them all entertained. This, of course, lends well to tourism, and visitors will find an abundance of things to do here. We're now just days away from the start of the 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo, even though, of course, it's 2021 and not 2020. Yes, we all know the pandemic has happened, and the Summer Olympics was no exception, with the event pushed back a year. Unfortunately, international visitors will not be allowed to go to the Games this year due to Japan's current COVID situation. But when the time is right, they open back up again and you are finally able to travel to the land of the rising sun. Here are a few things you'll have to do in Tokyo. Number 1. Tokyo Skytree. Although Tokyo is a huge city, it actually has few tall buildings, especially when you compare it to somewhere like New York. There is actually a reasoning behind this, as the region is subject to massive earthquakes, and there are standards for building and road construction that take massive lateral shock movements into account. So it might seem somewhat ironic that it is also home to the world's second tallest building. At 634 metres tall, the Tokyo Skytree is the primary television and radio broadcast site for the Kanto region, but it also welcomes visitors to its observation deck, where you will get to enjoy 360-degree views across the Tokyo-Yokohama region. If you want to get some perspective and gain an appreciation for just how big Tokyo is, get yourself up the Skytree and enjoy the urban sprawl. Number 2. The Arcades of Akihabara. When many people think of Japan, the first thing that springs to mind is electronics and possibly gaming. Whilst the country still has the reputation of being some kind of futuristic land, even though it still very much relies on things like cash, it cultivated this status in the 80s and 90s when video games came to the fore, with Japanese companies like Nintendo and Sony leading the way. And you can jump right into that era in the arcade-lined streets of Akihabara, which is Tokyo's epicenter of gaming. Here you'll find several multi-floor arcades decked out with all kinds of games, from Street Fighter to claw machines. Even if you're not a gaming fan, you'll be impressed with this part of town. Just set aside a few hours, as you'll likely be here a while. Number 3. Robot Restaurant. Nothing encapsulates the chaotic energy of Tokyo quite like Robot Restaurant. This festival of light, sound and robotics can be found in the Shinjuku district of the city, and here you'll be treated to a show that is just as entertaining as it is confusing. Tickets are fairly expensive, but for me it was money well spent, and before the show we were taken to a pre-bar where you can order drinks and food in one of the most trippy rooms I have ever seen. You're then taken through for the main show, where a multitude of characters, vehicles, animals and robots perform in front of you, seemingly with no regard for storyline, context or much else. It's just one of those things you've got to accept, sit back and enjoy. Number 4. Medji Jingu Shrine. Do you want a slice of traditional Japan on your trip? Maybe you just want to see some greenery and escape the manic vibe of city life. If so, Medji Jingu Shrine could be the place to visit. This Shinto shrine is dedicated to the spirits of Emperor Medji, the first emperor of modern Japan, and his wife, Empress Shokan. It was completed in 1920, 8 years after the passing of the emperor and 6 years after the empress's death. Medji Jingu is one of Japan's most popular shrines and has a museum, inner garden and a huge torii gate which sits amongst tranquil forest. Number 5. Shibuya Crossing. The most iconic area of Tokyo is, without doubt, Shibuya Crossing. If you've never heard of it before, you'll have probably seen it in some montage where a filmmaker has used a generic shot of hundreds of people coming together at once. But it is a real and very popular place. In fact, it is the busiest pedestrian crossing in the world, and it sounds strange to say, but getting in the mix is an attraction itself. I could have spent hours here waiting for the green man walking across the junction and taking photos. I'm a huge fan of cities, I love it when there's lots of people around, and this is my kind of place. I'd also recommend going both in the day and at night, so you can fully appreciate the neon advertisements and billboards that illuminate the area after sunset. Whether you plan on visiting Tokyo anyway or you're inspired by the upcoming Olympics, I hope you found this video to be of use. I know that there is so much on offer in Tokyo that I haven't included in this video, so if you've got any tips then let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching and I will see you next time.